enlightened. There's a video on YouTube, a series of videos you may have seen, and it's of people who have never been able to hear, and they're given this special hearing aid for the first time. And so you watch them, you put the hearing aid in, and they turn it on, and almost all the people have a similar reaction. At first, they're kind of just stunned, like, what is that? And then pretty much every single one of them break down crying. This new experience that they had never known before, this aspect of reality that is brand new, it just opens up doors for them. And it's overwhelming. I was talking to a student who she herself, for her first 10 years of life, couldn't hear. I was like, wow. I was like, and then you were able to hear. Like, what was that like? What was that like to not be able to hear? And she said, I didn't know I was missing anything. That her reality was what she was used to. And so to be able to hear, it was like this new reality, that the ceiling had been raised. But up to that point, I wasn't missing anything because I didn't know I was missing anything. Jesus desires more for us than we do. We don't know what's possible, but the eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, all-good God knows that He is possible, that infinity is possible. If you notice, the man in the gospel today who's born blind does not ask for healing. Jesus gives it to him. Jesus gives us more than we ask for, than we want. Every one of us has our own experience, our own way of looking at the world. It's just what we're used to. And every now and then something happens that kind of opens our eyes a little bit, and we see a little more clearly. But until that moment happens, we don't know that we're not seeing as clearly as we could. We don't know that we're missing out. Here's an example. I know that there's students that have never seen the Grand Canyon. And when I talk to them, I'm like, okay, you've been here for a few years. And they're like, I know, I should probably do that, 7 wonders of the world, but for we who have seen the Grand Canyon, we're like, no, stop what you're doing, get in the car, or rather, you know what, tomorrow morning I'm picking you up at 4 a.m. and we're going to watch the sunrise over the Grand Canyon, right? It's like you don't understand. You can't, a picture, I could tell you, you don't get it until you see it for yourself. God feels that way about so many things with us. He's telling us, trust me, do this. I have this for you. And we are just in our own experience it's where we're at. We're like, well, maybe, yeah, that's a good idea. I should do that. And God's He just waits to show us marvels better than the Grand Canyon. Jesus wants us to see reality as it is. He wants to take off our blinders and have us see ourselves, see reality as He sees it. And it's utterly important. Here's another example. I've talked with different students, and this is an issue we know with our friends, maybe with us, that there are people who feel like they are overweight. But the issue is they're not. They feel like they're fat. And so they starve themselves. Or they get rid of food after they've eaten. Because their perception of what they know is not in accord with reality. And through hopefully healing and good friends and counselors, that we begin to see what is reality versus just my own perception. Every one of us is deficient in some way in seeing reality for what it is. It's not our own fault. It was given to us, the original sin. That in original sin, our intellect is darkened. And it is the light of Christ that begins to illuminate us. This morning we had 2 students who were seeking baptism, the Easter Vigil, and they went through what we call scrutiny. But the idea is that if you've ever been at a baptism, you've seen like the big Paschal candle, and then you light the candle and receive the light of Christ. Because it's the light of Christ that illuminates our darkness. And for we who have been baptized, that we've been given that grace in baptism, and it's something that Christ desires to continue to brighten, to unfold, to enlighten us. And so Lent is this time of enlightenment and purification on the way to Easter. And so we all need that. Like, I don't see the world as it is. I just wish I knew how I was not seeing it. I wish I could see it more accurately, but I have to wait until the Lord illuminates. It's kind of like, maybe you get the point, but like, even the thunderstorm we had on Wednesday night, right? We were doing adoration, and there's like, God was doing his own adoration outside of the thunder. And someone was telling me they were driving, and then there was like the big one, right? It was like, boom, and the entire like Flagstaff side, like he was driving, and all of a sudden everything was just lit up. And it was like this moment of clarity of like, you know, God can do that to us, where you just see things more clearly. You're like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like, you know, when like after a relationship or something, and you kind of look back and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that. I couldn't see that before, but now I see. Now my friends were telling me, and I just didn't believe. I just didn't see it. But now I see it. Christ doesn't hold back from us. He waits for us to go to him. That he goes to this man and he gives him sight. He can see. And when this happens to us, it doesn't always happen to the people around us. And that's why, you know, in our short gospel here, you know, like we keep hearing, like, all these people are like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And the guy's like, come on, man. Like when we have that, when we can see more clearly, like the people around us won't get this. I was talking recently with a young man, and he's like, my girlfriend wants us to live together next year. You know, we spend a lot of time together. It's a financial decision. We want to. You know, she wants to live together. And he's like, don't get me wrong, I want to too, but like, maybe that's not the best decision. He's like, but I can't explain it in a way that she can see. I can't explain it in a way that she understands. And he's like, I don't even know that I understand it. I know that that's what, you know, Father Matt recommends, but like, you know, I just don't see it. I don't know. And it's one of those things that, like, I was like, bro, like, you don't, I need you to trust me. Like, I want you to be happy. And so sometimes our faith requires us to walk more by faith than by sight. And by doing that, we're given sight. For we do not see as God sees, how high his ways are above our ways. And if we can trust that he's leading us towards happiness, and we go to him with our heart, that he is the one who will illuminate it, and then he will guide us to what we need to do. At the end of the day, the advice for this guy was like, talk to the Lord. Talk to the Lord. He's the one. Because when Jesus is done healing this man, what does he do? He sends him to a pool called Siloam, which means sent. Sometimes we go to God and we're like, God, do I turn left or do I turn right? Do we break up? Do we stay together? Like, we have these questions, and we're like, God, just tell me the answer. And it doesn't work like that. That what my job is to go to the Lord. That, like, if Jesus is the light of the world, and I walk closer to him, I'm going to see myself more clearly as to who I am. And I'm going to be able to see the path that he wants me to go. And so my one job, is to go to him, to show myself to him. And he is the one that will then illuminate the path and send me on it. So it's not left or right, it's the Lord. And then he will send me, he will show me, I will have understanding, I will have clarity. And then I'll know which way to go. What's interesting about the light is you can't actually see light. You can see a light bulb, you can see a candle, but light makes it so that we can see everything else. I can't see God, but in him I can see everything. That in him my sight is made pure. That things are made clear. I was talking to a young man from Phoenix doing some spiritual direction, where in spiritual direction you're listening for what's happening between this person and God. Like what's going on here? And so I sit there and I just ask questions. I was like, what was that like? Say more about that. You said this phrase. What do you mean by that? And I just sit there and ask questions. And this young man is like, he's like just like revealing these things. And then I said, did you hear what you said? Here's what I heard you say. Boom. And I start just naming these things and making connections. And I kind of went off in my own little Father Matt world. And then I look back at him. And I'm like, does that make sense? And I look at him. And there's tears coming down his cheeks. And I said, what is God doing here? And he said, I just couldn't see it. He's like, I know that God is there. I know that God wants to be with me. But I just felt all these difficult moments. And I just couldn't see it until now, talking about it. That Christ desires all of that for all of us. That as we go to him with our hearts, with our difficulties, with our joys, that he wants to illuminate us. He wants to open up the path so that we can see ourselves more clearly, see reality as it is, and see him. That he who is the light of the world desires to enlighten us. And so we go to him. We seek him so that we can see him and be enlightened.